welcome back for another day. Guess what? Today we finish the book. We find out, does Sarah stay? Does she go back? Do they get married? Do Caleb and Anna get a new mom? What happens? Do the flowers grow? We will see. Here we go. Chapter 8 and 9. So chapter 8. The rain came and passed, but strange clouds hung in the northwest, low and black and green, and the air grew still. In the morning, Sarah dressed in a pair of overalls and went to the barn to have an argument with Papa. She took apples for old Bess and Jack. "Women don't wear overalls," said Caleb, running along behind her like one of Sarah's chickens. "This woman does," Sarah said crisply. Papa stood by the fence. "I want to learn how to ride a horse," Sarah told him. "And then I want to learn to drive a wagon by myself." Jack leaned over and nipped at Sarah's overalls. She fed him an apple. Caleb and I stood behind Sarah. "I can't ride a horse, I know," said Sarah. "I can ride a horse, I know," said Sarah. "I rode once when I was 12. I will ride Jack." Jack was Sarah's favorite. Papa shook his head. "Not Jack," he said. "Jack is sly." "I am sly too," said Sarah stubbornly. Papa smiled. "Yep," he said, nodding. "But not Jack." "Yes, Jack." Sarah's voice was very loud. "I can teach you how to drive a wagon. I have already taught you how to plow. And then I can go to town by myself." "Say no, Papa," Caleb whispered beside me. "That's not a fair thing, Sarah," said Papa. "We'll practice." A soft rumble of thunder sounded. Papa looked up at the clouds. "Today? Can we begin today?" asked Sarah. "Tomorrow is best," said Papa, looking worried. "I have to fix the house roof. A portion of it is loose, and there's a storm coming." "We," said Sarah. "What?" Papa turned. "We will fix the roof," said Sarah. "I've done it before. I know about roofs. I am a good carpenter. Remember, I told you." There was thunder again, and Papa went to get the ladder. "Are you fast?" he asked Sarah. "I am fast and I am good," said Sarah. And they climbed the ladder to the roof, Sarah with wisps of hair around her face, her mouth full of nails, overalls like Papa's, overalls that were Papa's. Caleb and I went inside to close the windows. We could hear the steady sounds of hammers pounding the roof overhead. "Why does she want to go to town by herself?" asked Caleb. "To leave us?" I shook my head, weary with Caleb's questions. Tears gathered at the corners of my eyes, but there was no time to cry, for suddenly Papa called out, "Caleb! Anna!" We ran outside and saw a huge cloud, horribly black, moving toward us over the north field. Papa slid down the roof, helping Sarah after him. "A squall!" he yelled to us. He held up his arms and Sarah jumped off the porch roof. "Get the horses inside," he ordered Caleb. "Get the sheep, Anna, and the cows. The barn is safer." The grasses flattened. There was a hiss of wind, a sudden pungent smell. Our faces looked yellow in the strange light. Caleb and I jumped over the fence and found the animals huddled by the barn. I counted the sheep to make sure they were all there and herded them into the large stall. A few raindrops came gentle at first, then stronger and louder so that Caleb and I covered our ears and stared at each other without speaking. Caleb looked frightened and I tried to smile at him. Sarah carried a sack into the barn, her hair wet and streamed down her neck. Papa came behind her, Lottie and Nick with him, their ears flat against their heads. "Wait!" cried Sarah. "My chickens!" "No, Sarah!" Papa called after her. But Sarah had already run from the barn into the sheets of rain. My father followed her. The sheep nosed open their stall door and milled around in the barn, bleating. Okay, again, that means going, bah, bah, bah. It's spelled bleating, bleeding, okay? Bleating, not bleeding. Got it? All right. Nick crept under my arm, and a lamb, Maddie, with the black face, stood close to me, trembling. There was a soft paw on my lap, then a gray body, Seal. And then, as the thunder pounded and the wind rose and there was a terrible crackling of lightning close by, Sarah and Papa stood in the barn doorway, wet to the skin. Papa carried Sarah's chickens. Sarah came with an armful of summer roses. Sarah's chickens were not afraid, and they settled like small, and they settled like small red bundles in the hay. Papa closed the door at last, shutting out some of the sounds of the storm. The barn was eerie and half lit, like dusk without a lantern. Papa spread blankets around our shoulders, and Sarah unpacked a bag of cheese and bread and jam. At the very bottom of the bag was Sarah's shells. Caleb got up and went over to the small barn window. "What color is the sea when it storms?" he asked Sarah. "Blue," said Sarah, brushing her wet hair back with her fingers, "and gray and green." Caleb nodded and smiled. "Look," he said to her. "Look, what is missing from your drawing?" Sarah went to stand between Caleb and Papa by the window. She looked a long time without speaking. Finally she touched Papa's shoulder. "We have squalls in Maine, too," she said. "Just like this. It will be all right, Jacob." Papa said nothing, but he put his arm around her and leaned over to rest his chin in her hair. I closed my eyes, suddenly remembering Mamma and Papa standing that way. Mamma smaller than Sarah, her hair fair against Papa's shoulder. When I opened my eyes again, it was Sarah standing there. Caleb looked at me and smiled until he could smile no more. We slept in the hay all night, waking when the wind was wild, sleeping again when it was quiet. And at dawn there was the sudden sound of hail, like stones tossed against the barn. We stared out the window, watching the ice marbles bounce on the ground, and when it was over we opened the barn door and walked out into the early morning light. The hail crunched and melted beneath our feet. It was white and gleaming as far as we could look, like sun on glass, like the sea. Chapter 9. It was very quiet. The dogs leaned down to eat the hailstones. Seal stepped around them and leaped up on the fence to groom herself. A tree had blown over near the cow pond, and the wild roses were scattered on the ground. And if a wedding had come and gone there, "I'm glad I saved an armful," was all that Sarah said. Only one field was badly damaged, and Sarah and Papa hitched up the horses and plowed and replanted during the next 2 days. The roof had held. "I told you I know about roofs," Sarah told Papa, making him smile. Papa kept his promise to Sarah. When the work was done, he took her out into the field, Papa riding Jack, who was sly, and Sarah riding old Bess. Sarah was quick to learn, too quick, Caleb complained to me as we watched them from the fence. He thought a moment. Maybe she'll fall off and have to stay." "Why?" he asked, turning to me. "Why does she have to go away alone?" "Hush up, Caleb," I said crossly. "Hush up." "I could get sick and make her stay here," said Caleb. "No, we would tie her up." "No." And Caleb began to cry, and I took him inside the barn where we could both cry. Papa and Sarah came to hitch the horses to the wagon so Sarah could practice driving. Papa didn't see Caleb's tears, and he sent him in with an axe to begin chopping up the tree by the pond for firewood. I stood and watched Sarah, the reins in her hand, Papa next to her in the wagon. I could see Caleb standing by the pond, one hand shading his eyes, watching too. I went into the safe darkness of the barn then. Sarah's chickens scuttled along behind me. Why? I asked out loud, echoing Caleb's question. The chickens watched me, their eyes small and bright. The next morning Sarah got up early and put on her blue dress. She took apples to the barn. She loaded a bundle of hay on the wagon for old Bess and Jack. She put on her yellow bonnet. Remember, Jack, said Papa, a strong hand. Yes, Jacob. Best to be home before dark, said Papa. Driving a wagon is hard if there's no full moon. Yes, Jacob. Sarah kissed all of us, even my father, who looked surprised. Take care of Seal, she said to Caleb and me, and with a whisper to old Bess and a stern word to Jack, Sarah climbed up in the wagon and drove away. Do you think she's leaving them? But she left Seal. Do you think she would leave without Seal? Do you think she's going to leave it as a present? Do you think Caleb and Anna are right that she's leaving? Or do you think she's just going into town for some other reason? I don't know. We'll have to see. Are you ready? Chapter 9. I'm sorry, I went to chapter 9. I can't remember if I told you I was in chapter 9 or not. Chapter 9 is with the hailstones. Okay, here we go. Ready? Very good, murmured Papa as he watched, and after a while he turned and went out into the fields. Caleb and I watched Sarah from the porch. Caleb took my hand and the dogs lay down beside us. It was sunny, and I remember another time when the wagon had taken Mama away. Sorry, let's try that again. And I remember another time when a wagon had taken Mama away. It had been a day just like this, and Mama had never come back. Remember, because she had died and they took her body away. Okay. Seal jumped up to the porch, her feet making a small thud. Caleb leaned down and picked her up and walked inside. I took the broom and slowly swept the porch. Then I watered Sarah's plants. Caleb cleaned out the wood stove and carried the ashes to the barn, spilling them so that I had to sweep the porch again. I am loud and pesky, Caleb cried suddenly. You said so, and she has gone to buy a train ticket to go away. No, Caleb, she would tell us. The house is too small, said Caleb. That's what it is. The house is not too small, I said. I looked at Sarah's drawings of the field pinned up on the wall next to the window. What is missing? I asked Caleb. You said you knew what was missing. Colors, said Caleb wearily. The colors of the sea. Outside, clouds moved into the sky and went away again. We took lunch to Papa, cheese and bread and lemonade. Caleb nudged me. Ask him. Ask Papa. What has Sarah gone to do? I asked. I don't know, said Papa. He squinted at me. Then he sighed and put one hand on Caleb's head, one on mine. Sarah is Sarah. She does things her way, you know. I know, said Caleb very softly. Papa picked up his shovel and put on his hat. Ask if she's coming back, whispered Caleb. Of course she's coming back, I said. Seal is here. But I would not ask the question. I was afraid to hear the answer. We fed the sheep and set the table for dinner. 4 plates. The sun dropped low over the west field. Lottie and Nick stood at the door wagging their tails asking for supper. Papa came to light the stove, and then it was dusk. Soon it would be dark. Caleb sat on the porch steps, turning his moon snail shell over and over in his hand. Seal brushed back and forth against him. Suddenly, Lottie began to bark, and Nick jumped off the porch and ran down the road. "Dust!" cried Caleb. He climbed the porch and stood on the roof. "Dust and a yellow bonnet!" Slowly the wagon came around the windmill and the barn and the windbreak and into the yard. The dogs jumped happily beside it. "Hush, dogs!" said Sarah, and Nick leaped up into the wagon to sit by Sarah. Papa took the reins, and Sarah climbed down from the wagon. Caleb burst into tears. "Seal was very worried," he cried. Sarah put her arms around him, and he wailed into her dress. "And the house is too small, we thought, and I am loud and pesky." Sarah looked at Papa and me over Caleb's head. "We thought you might be thinking of leaving us," I told her, "because you miss the sea." Sarah smiled. "No," she said, "I will always miss my old home, but the truth is that I would miss you more." Papa smiled at Sarah. Then he bent quickly to unhitch the horses from the wagon. He led them to the barn for water. Sarah handed me a package. "For Anna," she said, "and Caleb, for all of us." The package was small, wrapped in brown paper with a rubber band around it. Very carefully I unwrapped it, Caleb peering closely. Inside there were 3 colored pencils. "Blue," said Caleb slowly, "and gray, and green." Sarah nodded. Suddenly Caleb grinned. "Papa," he called, "Papa, come quickly. Sarah has brought the sea." We eat our night meals by candlelight, the 4 of us. Sarah has brought candles from town, and natrium seeds for her garden, and a book of songs to teach us. It is late, and Caleb is nearly sleeping by his plate, and Sarah is smiling at my father. Soon there will be a wedding. Papa says that when the preacher asks if he will have Sarah for his wife, he will say, "Uh-huh." Autumn will come, then winter, cold with a wind. I'm sorry, let me start again. See, that's what happens when you don't read the punctuation. Oops. All right, let's start again. Do 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 do. Papa says that when the preacher asks if he will have Sarah for his wife, he will answer, "Uh-huh." Autumn will come, then winter, cold with a wind that blows like the wind off the sea in Maine. There will be nests of curls to look for, and dried flowers all winter long. When there are storms, Papa will stretch a rope from the door to the barn so we will not be lost when we feed the sheep and the cows and Jack and old Bess, and Sarah's chickens if they aren't living in the house. There will be Sarah's sea, blue and gray and green, hanging on the wall, and songs, old ones and new, and Seal with yellow eyes, and there will be Sarah, plain and tall. And that is the end of our book. She stayed. Yay! All right. So, tomorrow, watch the movie. Secret password for today is tornado. Okay? So, it wasn't a tornado, but it was a thunderstorm, and it did have hail. All right? So, tornado. Are you ready? All right. This is our last video ever for the whole entire year, 4th grade. So this is the last reading video. It's it. We're done. You finished. You are awesome. I miss you. I am sad that this is the way our year ended. And you guys know I love you and I pray for you. And you know I cry at the end of the year. So this year was like twice, right? When I said goodbye to you that Friday and said I thought maybe we might not ever come back. And now again when I'm saying goodbye to you. So I will miss you. Come see me next year if you're still at the school and we actually get to open or something. All right? Have a great day. Bye-bye, guys.